Hey everyone, Techstrong and AI are taking over RSAC. You're watching Techstrong Gang. Hello everyone. If you can't tell, we're not in our usual Boca Raton studio. We're here at the Moscone Center West on Broadcast Alley, bringing you Techstrong Gang from RSA Conference. Happy to be joined by two of our regular gang members. Our West Coast people are finally here in person with us, coming down from the Golden Gate Bridge atop its perch, high atop the Golden Gate Bridge.
Always.
Our Tsar, the Tsar of Silicon Valley, John Swartz. John,
Hi,
it's great to
welcome
have you.
to San Francisco, where Lisa and I live. Not together, but we live in the Bay Area. Sorry about that. A lot of history in this Moscone Center. I was going to tell you, I used to work on this street for 5 years. I worked at a place called Mac Week. And there are a lot of history. There's the iPhone announcement was here with Steve Jobs in 2007. We had the Democratic National Convention in 1984 with the famous Mario Cuomo speech. Originally, that facility was supposed to be a hockey arena.
Really?
The idea was to build an arena for the basketball and hockey professional teams by a guy named Mill Swig. It never happened, and instead they built Moscone Center with, I don't want to say mixed results. It's a very interesting, somewhat flawed facility, but it's also a lot steeped in history.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
I remember that Cuomo speech. That was in response to the city on the hill.
Exactly. It was his rejoinder to Ronald Reagan.
Yeah.
It was brilliant.
Interesting times. Of course, Lisa, you're much too young to remember that.
A little bit.
But joining us also, part of our San Francisco, West Coast, Silicon Valley gang members, and she's here all week doing interviews with us, Lisa Martin. Hey, Lisa, how are you?
Great to be with you guys in person.
Yes, you don't get it. We don't get a chance to
We
get
don't.
you in person much.
We don't. You guys are both taller than you are on StreamYard.
Probably a little, I would imagine.
I don't think I am.
Well, you look pretty tall. Anyway, so guys, look, it's a gangbusters RSA. We did our DevSecOps event yesterday. Amazing day. We had some amazing leaders speaking. It was great. If you can't tell, I have a cold and my voice isn't what it usually is, but we're going to power through this. AI seems to rule the day here. No different than when we're back in the studio. Our first story, I guess, comes out of a story that you and Mike covered.
Well, Mike covered it, but we both were briefed on it by Cisco. Cisco, basically, I'm going to do a little cheat notes here for a second, but Mike wrote the story. It's in Security Boulevard. Cisco is making available an open source Gen AI reasoning model to automate cybersecurity analytics and workflows. They also announced a set of controls for securing AI artifacts in software supply chains. So that was their news. It's interesting. They're also further integrating the Splunk platform for analyzing IT telemetry data that it acquired last year with the XDR. So it's funny because at the same time this news is being announced, I'm getting flooded with data, surveys, polling that's showing this incredible two things: FOMO and the urgency from the top to get up to speed as fast as humanly possible, which is contradicted by this almost paralytic fear or terror of screwing it up.
Yeah.
And so there are a lot of polling results. SNCC just came out with one today, basically showing 80% of the IT managers within these companies are convinced something is going to happen, and they're really concerned about it, but they're kind of wading their way into it. So I think, in a sense, what Cisco is trying to do, and we're going to talk about the Palo Alto networks and others are trying to do, is assuage their customers and ensure them that they're not rushing headlong into oblivion or some sort of security disaster.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope.
They are rushing headlong
They are.
into it. Though.
It's like,
Everybody is. It's
yeah, they
massive
are.
No,
acceleration.
you know what? This so much reminds me of 2006. In 2006, had a lot of friends starting companies. They were looking for funding. And the first question every VC asked, or the first question every journalist asked when they met with a new company is, "What's your cloud? What's your cloud story? What's your cloud story?" Right? And how do you play in the cloud? What are you doing with the cloud? Now, this might be that on steroids,
I think it is.
right? What's your AI story? Palo Alto, you're one of the biggest. Well, interestingly, Palo Alto is not on that show floor, or they don't have
Well,
a
they're
big
going to have
presence.
so later today. I'm going to go over to their press event. They've blocked out like 2.5 hours, which is an ungodly amount of time for a press event. But they're going to announce an AI security platform, which we'll talk about in Block B. They're going to talk about an acquisition. They're going to do a lot of things, but they chose, I don't know why, but their executives will be at this event. They're going to have it at the Metreon, which is
No, I will
Block
tell
B.
you why.
Tell me why.
They didn't want to spend the money to do a big RSA event. A lot of the bigger companies, I've seen this. It started with my friend Philippe Courteau at Qualys about 10 years ago. Of course, Philippe passed away. He's not with us anymore, unfortunately. But Qualys gave up their booth space here
Interesting.
and instead used to hold court at either the St. Regis or another hotel on Union Square. A lot of the bigger companies, to get the kind of presence that they want, it's prohibitive to do it on the show floor here, which is
You just get lost in the shuffle.
Yeah.
There
Yeah,
are
you do.
rows of
so
content.
they move their stuff off prem.
Microsoft and GitHub, I believe, are going to have a event down at the Palace.
Yeah, well, Microsoft has a huge
So they have
on
a
the
booth.
floor.
Okay.
What you'll also see, and I don't know if we could see it, but if you look out here, what used to be Jillian's
Yeah.
is the CrowdStrike Falcon roost or whatever.
Yeah.
Next to it is another one over here. I forgot the name. All of these, they've taken over every space around.
So this is kind of weird. So South by Southwest did the same thing, right?
Yes.
There's the big convention center, but I remember even 10 years ago, they would rent out. When I was at USA Today, we rented out a restaurant, and we had just our customers come there, and the reporters would report from there. Red Herring would do this traditionally at South by Southwest. There was CNN had their bar and grill.
Yep.
And I think the
Event within
same
an event.
phenomenon is happening where
Yeah.
you kind of capture the brand as you
Pop-ups.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Pop-ups.
pop-ups.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's a huge.
Well, they get away from the noise.
Yeah.
There's so
Well,
much
trying
noise
to
here.
just have their own noise.
Yeah. But you bring
A
up a great
quiet
point.
noise.
Yesterday, I talked with a lot of great security companies, and you bring up a great point about this paralytic fear, but also the acceleration. That there's FOMO. We have to get on board here. We have to have an AI story, but AI is making the cyber landscape even more amorphous
Yeah.
and hard to control. But we had a lot of great conversations yesterday about how these contrast security, intro security was on, and Internet was here talking about secure storage. 90% of your enterprise data is in your storage solution, so you need to be able to secure that rather than having all the doors open. But folks are definitely in that urgency mode, fear of missing out, but also concern of what risks does this AI opportunity also present.
So maybe this is the conference that tries to temper the fears and the anxiety of the
Oh, no.
enterprises.
That's
Do you
not
think,
security.
No?
you think it's just
We,
going to
we live on FUD. What are you kidding?
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
they're gonna
They're going to tell them everything that can go wrong.
right.
Yeah.
They're gonna
Yeah.
raise it to a level. I think what it is though is every company wants to be perceived as being aware of the risk, on top of trying to manage
Yeah.
it, and harnessing the power of AI to make their solutions better in this day and age. And when you get a company like Cisco that's talking about releasing open source, pigs fly, right? Cisco's releasing open source software because they're afraid, and this is my personal opinion, I don't know for sure, they're afraid they don't have the mojo to do this AI thing themselves.
Really?
And by putting it out in the open source community, they're looking to gather allies
Ah.
and support to get this thing ready for
Moving.
prime time.
Yeah.
Do you think they represent a number of other companies, probably like their size or their tradition or their reputation, who are going to do the same thing? They're going to follow the same type
Well,
of strategy.
here's the deal. I got to get an AI solution out there. My shareholders, the press, everyone's clamoring.
Right.
What's your AI story? What's your AI story? How can I get an AI solution out to market fast? The fastest.
Yes.
Open source it.
Right.
Crowdsource it. Get the community, especially in this era of foundational open source, where we could do co-opetition.
Yes.
You know, when I think about Cisco's a classic example of a company that probably needs to do that because, in a sense, they've gone through layoffs. They've kind of been they're all long and established, venerable. It's hard for them to pivot. They're too
They
big.
don't
They're too big.
innovate.
Yes.
It's hard to innovate. I mean, I won't go down the path with Apple. That's another story, or Intel. But I think it's the same type of situation where, Microsoft got ahead of the curve
With OpenAI.
with OpenAI. So these companies, in a sense, they're adapting at their own speed, and their speed sometimes is a little bit slower than others because they're bigger.
Yeah.
Well, but this is the way of the world, Grasshopper, right? In security. There's little fish, medium fish, and big fish. Little fish innovate.
Yeah.
Medium fish eat the big fish and kind of innovate from that. Big fish eat the medium fish,
And
and
that's
they don't innovate usually.
No.
They just
acquire,
assimilate.
acquihire.
They
Exactly.
assimilate.
Well, that's what ServiceNow's done a lot of that. I can't keep track of the number of acquisitions
Yeah.
they've done.
I know.
Cisco is that's their history.
Specifically in security, and I'm talking go back to the days of Symantec and
Yeah.
McAfee
Yeah.
and Cisco and all of them. They bought their innovation.
Yeah.
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 And that, as someone who's been an entrepreneur in security for 25, 30 years now, that was always the promise. It was a pipe dream to think you were going to have an IPO. I mean, that's 1%.
Right.
But a really good chance that you would get bought up by,
Yeah.
one of the bigger fish
Yeah.
for your IP or your talent.
Or your exit strategy is to be.
That was
I mean,
your exit strategy.
And this might be this show, and Monday was an example of, and we'll talk about it later. Palo Alto Networks
Yeah.
acquiring Protect.
But that's typical.
Yeah.
Typical.
We might see an acceleration of it actually, given the.
Well, my sources in the valley
Yes, I heard.
tell me that we're going to see a similar acquisition to the Palo Alto acquisition this week.
This week.
announced.
Wow.
Stay tuned.
That's
Yes,
good.
stay
Nice,
tuned.
good.
But you bring up a great point about the innovation. Now, the only thing that concerns me is like companies like Cisco that are, and the ServiceNows that are just constantly acquiring. Are they doing a good job of integrating the technologies so
you
that
know what they say
customers
about that?
benefits?
You got to break a couple of eggs to make an omelet.
That is true.
So what happens with these acquisitions is, probably 10% of them fail. Fail. Not that the acquisition doesn't take place, but the technology never makes its way. It turns out the technology is either too frail
Okay.
or just not real, frankly.
Ah,
And it doesn't make its way in. The founders take their money and leave.
yeah. Yeah.
The key brains get hired somewhere else. This is the way of Silicon Valley
True.
in the security world. So probably 20 to 25% of acquisitions, they're broken eggs in the omelet factory.
Okay.
And yet, I think we're going to probably see more acquisitions because the IPO pipeline isn't really panning
Absolutely.
out.
Great point.
And the IPO that everyone wants to happen or is hoping it would happen would be eventually OpenAI. But they're going to have a problem making a transition to for-profit. There's so much opposition, and the AGs have to sign. The AG in California has to sign off on that for it to happen, for them to go to for-profit status.
Not only that, the problem I think you're going to have is at what valuation,
Right.
right? At their present raises,
They're at 300 billion market
you're
value.
going to have
IBM,
you're
they're
gonna-
valued more than IBM at this point.
Wow.
You're going to have an IPO for $1 trillion company,
Yeah.
because that's what it's going to take for people early, later money in to make some, their normal return here.
Yeah, you're already seeing a bunch of lawsuits, not just Musk, but there was a letter that was sent from former employees and Jeffrey Hinton in opposition to what OpenAI wants to do. So I mean, you've got
Well,
that plus just the market reality of something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just that's a high valuation.
Yeah.
We had the CISO of OpenAI at our event yesterday, as well as the CISO of Anthropic. It was interesting speaking to both of them and
Yeah.
hearing them talk about how important security is.
Interesting. Well, Anthropic, I
I'm a CISO.
understand. Yeah. Oh,
Both the same.
yeah.
The pressure to get out new models.
The pressure, yes.
They're constantly, they got to release new models.
OpenAI just introduced the lightweight
4.0s, yeah.
4.0s, yes. Free, but limited.
No,
use.
but the pressure to get them out
Yeah.
makes it very hard to get security in.
Ah.
I think that's what terrifies the companies, the speed of which these models are coming out. It's like,
Yes.
wait a second. Plus the benchmarks, they're not what they appear to be, right? They are.
Yeah, but they're in this benchmark race. Claude's benchmark is higher than this one's, and that's Gemini is better than that, and these Chinese ones, and so that creates this race, wacky races.
Yeah.
But even
Yeah.
the benchmark tests themselves are being questioned by third parties. They're saying, wait, this score that you were assigned, that's not what we found. So anyway, in a sense, it's buyer beware, but buyer
Look,
has to
it's all
buy.
part of the gold rush.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all part of.
But you're
the
right
gold
about the
rush.
pressure. It's absolutely
the
there. We
pressure
were
is
talking about it
intense.
yesterday with
But
there's
the
just so much software being developed they can't keep up from a security perspective. And that's the challenge.
But the pressure is also on the Ciscos and the Palo Altos to
Yes.
say, what's your AI story?
What's your story?
What's your AI
Yes.
story?
You must have one.
And that's what we're dealing with. Hey, let's take a break. We're going to continue this trend of what's your AI story. Got an article John wrote yesterday. You're watching Techstrong, gang. Hey, we're back here live. Well, we're not live. This is recorded, but I am alive at RSA conference. I've been coming to RSA conference since 2002. There's two things you could always count on at RSA. Number one, people are going to put out their security reports, whether it's breach data, vulnerability data, or whatever. They save their reports for RSA. So this way we could talk about 75 different security reports at the same time. Impossible to do. Secondly, acquisitions. M&A activity peaks at RSA conference every year. Actually, from RSA to Black Hat, this 3-month window. You'll see all kinds of acquisitions. The acquisition train started off yesterday with an article, John, you were on.
Yes, so Palo Alto Networks kept me very busy the last few days because they kept burying me in news announcements. So they were announcing some updates to two of their main product lines. They were also announcing an AI security platform that we could talk a little bit about. But the big news, they buried the lead, as we say in journalism. They dropped this announcement they're going to buy Protect AI. I don't know the value of the deal, but I think it's rumored around $700 million. Pretty significant.
Yeah.
So in a sense, this acquisition plays into the AI security platform that Palo Alto Networks announced. It's interesting. There's the chief product officer. And again, I want to be sure that I get what he says right. Lee Klarich, who we're going to talk to later today. He said AI agents and apps are transforming the way we work, blah, blah, blah. The attack surface isn't just expanding, it's fundamentally changing. The thing that most companies need is more point products to secure their use of AI, and they want to use best-in-class security, which means they're going to buy companies that specialize in things that Palo Alto Networks maybe isn't especially adept at. And they want to deliver this right architecture, and he uses a word, platformization is that architecture. So in a long-winded way, they made their their big play. In a sense, I think what they're doing, and this has been going on for several weeks now, and I think Atlassian, even NVIDIA, they understand the anxiety that's out there. So they don't want to be a Switzerland. I'll put the words in their mouth, but they want to be like a neutral site to help everybody, given this AI agent avalanche.
Yes.
I think JP talked about this last week. We counted 25 AI agent platforms that have been announced in recent months. So if you're within an enterprise, you're thinking, what am I going to do? Like, what do I use? One source? Do I piece it together? And are they compatible? What do? I need someone to kind of glue it together and to secure it. And I think that's kind of the play that Palo Alto Networks made. They're going to have a press conference later today, and they're going to go into it deeper. But, it's a wise move. And they got a lot of attention.
Yeah.
It's an important news. But as Alan said, too, they are not going to be the last company, probably this week or next, that's going to make some sort of acquisition. And I think we might see, as you mentioned, and that's a very good point, between now and Black Hat in August, that's acquisition season in security. Yeah.
Always has been. A couple things, John, to your points here. Number one, in today's inflated AI market, 700 million is a mere bag of shells.
Yeah.
It's really not a lot of money, though it's crazy money when you look at revenue, as a multiple. This is insane.
Yeah.
But, one man's folly is another man's fortune, and maybe 700 million winds up being a bargain at some point. Secondly, though, Palo Alto is playing the big boys game.
Yeah.
In security. And I had Daniel Newman here yesterday, and Daniel and I spoke a little bit about this. And to him, it was like a eureka thing. To me, it was, being a security person, this is what they do. And when you look at the security landscape, you have very small companies who make products. I mentioned it in the last segment: small fish, medium fish, big fish, red fish, blue fish. Small companies make products. Medium companies take those products and turn them into features. Big companies take those products and features and build them into a platform.
Yes.
That's a
Palo Alto is playing the platform game, right? Because that's the pinnacle. When you're a platform, everything else plugs in.
Yeah.
Whether it's APIs or marketplaces or however else you want to plug into this platform, including assimilation, by the Borg. That's the game the big boys play.
Yeah.
This is a big boy 101 play.
Textbook case.
Textbook.
Yeah.
Do you suppose? I mean, so you talked about the cloud era earlier.
Yeah.
So we always consistently hear the same message that what's happening with AI is a combination of everything that happened before it, except it's bigger than everything that happened before it. So I'm wondering, given what happened with Palo Alto Networks, does the acquisition narrative follow that same pattern where there's more acquisitions than before because there are more startups than before?
That's a great point.
I mean, there are more people gold rushing.
So yesterday they had the Innovation Sandbox here.
Oh, sure, yeah.
10 finalists. This year, each of the finalists got $5 million.
Wow.
Whether they won or not. If you're all winners, right? $5 million for you, $5 million for you. They did an Oprah. I think out of the 10, 8 of them or 9 of them were AI-related companies.
80 to 90%.
So you're going to see a plethora of these AI companies.
Yeah.
90% of them, their exit strategy is acquisition, being acquired.
Yeah.
Fitting into a platform or becoming a feature in someone's product that then goes into a platform. This is how security's always been. It's nothing new.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned Symantec. I remember Gordon Eubanks. Remember him? He was the CEO. The same thing that McAfee did. It just gave me kind of this flashback. They would just acquire companies every other week.
What's the story for customers, though? Because customers want simplicity in this age of security and AI and this amorphous spreading of the threat landscape. What's Palo's message to its customers?
We are your source for AI.
We are your source for
We
AI.
are
We are your
It's a clean story.
platform. We are your platform. for
Come shopping
secure-
through us, right? If you need this, we specialize
We're
in
your
all of
Amazon.
this.
Yeah, for AI.
And speaking of it, so I used to work. I worked downtown San Francisco for about 30 years, and one of the things, and this is, we hear so many stories about San Francisco and like what it's gone through, right? Just living here, post COVID, the AI environment, and in terms of just like these little small companies that exist out of apartments or homes or little small rental facilities, has really, like, in a sense, and RSA in particular has rejuvenated the city in the last year. And so I think you're right. This gold rush thing is kind of escalating to the point where there's so many opportunities for extreme specialization that they're discovering across vertical markets, not just in general use.
Right.
I'm thinking like healthcare, construction, manufacturing.
No,
police
AI is
surveillance.
applicable to
Police
all of
surveillance
these
that
things.
we keep talking about, good and bad.
Yeah.
The ride up here yesterday from San Jose, up 101, the billboards for AI with all of these smaller companies trying to get a clear, concise message out why we're your shop for AI. I lost count.
That used to be it on
Let me
101.
ask you a question, though. Are those billboards aimed at consumers, or are they trying to get Palo Alto or someone else's
I think it's the
attention?
latter. Yes.
Yeah.
That I didn't feel a consumer message.
So during the internet boom, if you drove on 101, I used to do that every day to go to work. The billboards were everywhere, and then they stopped for a while. Now they've returned,
no,
and it is overkill. I mean, it gets lost in the noise. but
Mebius must have had, like,
but
10.
they don't care about what we, the commuters, think.
No.
They're
They,
aiming
they
for-
know who their
Absolutely.
audience is.
Yeah.
They know who their target audience
If the VCs see it.
Right.
And look, more power to them.
Oh,
You know, there will be a lot of winners. There'll be a lot of losers. There'll be a lot of these AI companies that wind up not getting the $700 million
Yeah.
exit.
Yeah.
You know, my friend Brad Feld always said, if you're not in the top three,
your
get out.
history.
Mm.
Yeah.
And, you know, because the top three get the multiples. So,
So I'm gonna
Unicorns.
issue a mea culpa too, because we talked. I mean, off and on, we've talked about things like Apple and AI, and I've always kind of take a dig at them because I think their days of innovation are kind of over. But there was a survey that came out. I actually wrote about this. I wanted to just bring this up. A survey came out that 80% of the people out there are willing to wait for what Apple does, and they're willing to pay at least $10 a
true.
month. Whatever they come out with. Most of them actually were willing to pay like $20 a month.
Yeah.
And I think about like the people who are going to be eventually the winners, even though they're a little bit late to the market, which they always are.
They always
by
are.
by design.
Their MO.
This time I don't know if it's by design. I think it's by misstep as well.
Could be.
We talk about the winners. I always want to wonder who you think are going to be eventually the polls positions in AI, because there are more than 3 or 5 major companies that are kind of trying to.
you know, if you look at every technical innovation plateau that we've hit,
Yeah.
the start of the internet, e-commerce,
Yep.
cloud, AI now. It's the same old companies. There's usually always one or two that come in, you know, from each of these new innovation things. So who's going to be the winners? Well, IBM's been a winner for 100 and something years.
Yeah.
They'll be a winner. They'll be here. Apple, Google, Meta, they'll
Microsoft.
all be here. Microsoft, they'll be here. Maybe OpenAI is the AI darling. If I was a betting man, Anthropic will become part of a platform.
Yes.
Maybe Amazon.
Yes. I've heard that rumor.
I have too.
Well, they've
Yeah.
invested a ton of money,
Yes.
There's a ton
They
of
have.
money.
Yes.
but so's Google for that matter.
Hey, so you mentioned at RSA, it's not to kind of assure us, but maybe to tell us what could possibly go wrong. So I talked yesterday with the SNCC CTO. His name is Danny Allen, who's
You
here.
know, I interviewed Danny.
Danny,
I know
right?
Danny.
He's a hockey player.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, cool. So, but he said he was almost, I'm going to quote him, almost certainly within 12 months, if things continue at this pace, like the crazy pace we're going to see a major security breach involving AI, particularly things around the area of sales.
Really? Sales.
Because that's my fear. I mean, I'm not hoping this happens, but I think it's an eventuality. It's inevitable that there will be some sort of like CrowdStrike-like events. And that's what keeps companies a little bit hesitant to go all in because they're afraid they are going to be the company like a Delta that goes
Nobody
through this.
wants to be the next headline.
Right. I mean, it will come and go, but they just don't want to accept the responsibility, even though they want all the riches at the same time.
Well, the amount of data that sales has and marketing, I think they're huge opportunities for attackers that the sales folks, the marketing folks need to look at all this customer data and how do we make sure it's secure?
They don't care.
You don't think they care? I want to believe they care.
I'll
Looks
tell
like
you
the
what.
meta approach is broken.
There's two aspects of a security incident. You're talking about a breach where they stole all my sales and marketing data.
Yeah.
BFD. BFD. I don't care. As long as I still have it and use it, because I could sell better than them or, whatever. The bigger fear is sort of like a ransomware or a CrowdStrike thing where I can't get to my sales and marketing data.
Right.
Then all of a sudden the wheels grind to a halt.
I see your point. Yep.
That they worry about.
That, yes.
But someone breaking in and stealing my AI data.
Yeah.
BFD.
I'm thinking like a system-wide failure.
Right.
Yeah.
Although the ransomware thing like has legs. I mean, you just constantly hear
totally.
about these companies just willing to pay.
Of course they would.
Yeah, just
If
keep it.
your sales and marketing shut down, you'd pay.
Yeah.
Believe me.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're about ready for our next gang topic. We're going to take a break. We are here at RSA, Moscone West. If you're watching this tomorrow, we'll be here tomorrow too. Come on in. That's Wednesdays tomorrow. Today. Tomorrow is today when you're doing the gang. We'll be back in a minute.
Discover Techstrong Group, the epicenter of tech innovation. We're your go-to for reaching IT leaders and practitioners worldwide. Our secret? Impactful content that sparks awareness, engagement, and top-quality leads. With us, you'll access editorial websites, streaming videos, virtual events, custom content, analyst research, and more. Join our satisfied clients. Let's revolutionize your tech journey. Contact us today and tell your story to the world in the most powerful way with Techstrong Group.
Welcome back to Techstrong Gang. We're in San Francisco at RSA conference in Moscone Center. And Block C, Minimus, launched a managed service, which Alan knows a lot about. So I'm gonna throw it to Alan, but just again, this is like the Super Bowl. I don't know, maybe we should ask you first. How do you, we've done this before. How do you compare what goes on here to Black Hat? Are they two pretty similar shows now? It seems like they've kind of morphed into one another.
So I've been coming to RSA since 2002, coming to Black Hat since 2003. Though I don't go, honestly, I stopped going to Black Hat from 2010 or 11 through maybe 15, 16. I just didn't feel like going out to Las Vegas
In August,
summer.
110 degree weather.
Yep.
There was a time when Black Hat was at Caesar's Palace.
I remember that.
DEF CON was at the Rio.
Ugh.
And, I was running Still Secure. Mitchell, my friend Raja Bhargava was the CEO. And we were exhibitors at Black Hat. It was exciting.
Yeah.
What made Black Hat different than RSA was Black Hat was about security research. Barnaby Jack getting up there and making the ATM rain money, hacking pacemakers.
I was terrified of using a cell phone there.
Really?
I wouldn't.
I was hacked in 2005 there.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
iPhone, I think it was the iPhone 3 in 2005. Had a very bad thing. By default, it would if it was an SSID, it recognized it would
Yeah.
go on to it. I didn't know. It fucking went. Excuse my language.
But you had that,
Bring me back.
bulletin board of shame too.
Yeah,
where
the
you
wall
would
of
get
sheep.
outed.
That was the wall
Really?
of the
Wall
wall
of
of
shame.
sheep. The wall of sheep.
Of sheep. Oh, that's right. Good memory. Yeah. I may have made it.
My iPhone 3 attached to an SSID that it had seen before, but it was the decoy, and I got hacked. Didn't realize it till I got home that Saturday morning. I was coaching my little Bradley was 4 or 5 years old. 2005, he was 4 years old, 5 years old. And some of the mothers from the team called me that they had received some unusual emails from me with some very interesting pictures.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Then I realized I was locked out of my blog, my mail, my domains, everything.
Wow.
And it was interesting. Yeah, it took me. Thank God I had good friends back then I was able to get retake my domains, retake my
Okay,
Google and
yeah.
Yahoo and everything.
But how long did that take you?
A day or two, only because I was calling the head of security
Because
at
you
that
had
time
connections.
and said, "Hey,
Yeah.
actually, I'll never forget this. A good friend, Robert Hansen, Snake, very famous security dude.
Yes.
Robert found out who it was. The guy's in jail right now for anti-Semitic troping and all kinds of shit, and he should rot there. But Robert helped me a lot. My friend Jeremiah Grossman, a lady she was at Microsoft at the time. I don't know if you know Katie Masuris. She started the whole bug bounty program in security. Katie helped me. I had a lot of, I've been in this community a long time.
That was an advantage.
And I had a lot of friends.
I was terrified of it back then because I remember
you had
I
to
would
be.
go back there with one of our guy, Byron
You had to
Akihito.
I remember
we
Byron.
were doing research for this book.
Yeah.
And the community knew that what we were up to, and we were.
You're better off just leaving
We
your phone
did, yes.
shut off in your room.
So we did, yeah.
But that's what Black Hat used to be.
Okay. It's not anymore, though.
What has it evolved into?
When they moved into Mandalay Bay, and it got very corporate, Jeff, what's his name, sold it. Jeff Moss sold it.
Oh, okay.
It's part of Informa now. I'm not knocking Informa, though they deserve it. They don't let enough press people into Black Hat because they like to keep their own press people there.
Okay.
But it became RSA in the desert. It really, you don't see the research like you used
Really?
to.
Not the same.
It's the same as this, except in the desert. And where this has about 45,000 people, I think Black Hat's about 19,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's half the size.
Oh, so what about Minimus and Matt?
Well, let me talk about Minimus.
Mike wrote this story. I think it's
Yeah.
on Security Bill.
Yes.
Probably.
So this is a new story, but an old story. Right? Do you remember when we used to install Windows on floppy disks?
Oh my gosh.
And there was a time where Windows installed on 3 or 4, those 5 1/4 inch, the big ones.
Yeah.
Then they went to the 3.5 hard floppies. And it went from 5 of those to 10 of those to all day feeding them in and we used to call bloatware, right? Our OS was full of bloatware. All those applications Microsoft installed that we never used. It's the same thing in Linux distros. All the packages, though in Linux you have more of a choice of what packages you want to install. Mac has it too. They all do. It extends to the platforms that the Palo Altos and everyone come out with. So we've always been on a quest of all of that bloatware represents security exposure,
Absolutely.
right? It's your exposure, like your skin. It's more exposure. There's a word and I'm not thinking of it right now. But so you want to reduce your exposure. You want to reduce your profile. And so we've all tried, or not in the security industry, we've tried to boil down, get rid of the fat, get rid of the bloatware,
Yeah.
get rid of unnecessary code so that my security profile, my attack surface, that's the word I'm thinking.
Attack surface.
Attack surface. How do I shrink my
Yes.
attack surface?
Yes.
Minimus is shrinking attack surface. They're taking your apps hosted and have taken out the bloat, taken out the unnecessary, and shrunk your attack surface. Of course, the issue is did they take out anything I may want to use? Just because 80% of the people don't use this particular feature, it may be important to me.
Right.
You know, when I was talking to, I think it was a PR person yesterday about Minimus. They wanted to bring him by. We may have him on our coverage here this week. When I was at SUSECon last month, they're doing a very similar thing. SUSE is taking all of your most common Linux packages. They're hosting them, just like Minimus is hosting them. And they're taking out all of the bloat, all of the security, making sure they're updated. And now you can get your Linux packages to you get your distro that has the basics. But as you want more packages, you can download the SUSE version of them, which are stripped down, bloatware out, hardened, and supposedly just a better choice. Very similar to Minimus. Now, when you're SUSE and you have a distro of Linux, that makes a great platform play, right? You're using my platform, and here are the apps you want to use on my platform that I'm blessing. They're hardened, they're stripped down, they're skinny. When you're Minimus, my question is, there's 1 trillion apps out here.
Yeah.
How many of them are you going to host?
Exactly.
I don't know. It'll be interesting. I mean, look, there's a subset of apps that 80% of us use. And if they just focus on them, there's a business there.
That was a question that I had from your conversations about Minimus. I love the name, by the way, Minimus, minimizing that attack surface. But also, with the app explosion, it's not going to slow down.
No.
That's the thing.
That's
All this
the problem.
acceleration, right? So how do they get?
I mean, think about it. If I'm an app developer and I say, we could get great distribution, can we get this into Minimus, have them minimize it, and put it in their SaaS? How much is Minimus going to charge for that? What's the wait time?
Yeah.
Are they going to strip it down and not lose anything essential? All of the above. I mean, it's an interesting play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just don't know how it scales in terms of how many apps you're putting in there.
The app sprawl. Yeah. Yeah.
But again, it's just like another example of a company that's offering a solution across the board. It's kind of platform neutral. I mean, it's
Yeah, well, you would
it's
think
practical,
so.
I guess.
You think
In
so.
theory.
you think so, yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean,
We'll see.
Again, who knows?
Yep. Well, there will be a lot of companies launched here, a lot of companies coming out of stealth. As a matter of fact, I mentioned Innovation Sandbox.
Yes.
Another part, excuse me, another part of the RSAC innovation program is Innovation Launchpad,
Okay, innovation.
which are companies coming out of stealth. We're recording this Tuesday morning, Tuesday afternoon, 3:30 over at the YBAC. They will be announcing the winners of the Innovation Launchpad companies coming out of stealth.
Okay.
I don't think there's money attached to it like there is Sandbox, but nevertheless, it's a great start if you're a young company.
Oh, awesome.
Exciting.
Awesome.
Very
Good stuff.
exciting. Yeah.
All right. Hey, what do you say we wrap up?
Yeah.
All right.
Good idea.
John, Lisa, thank you
Thank you.
Thanks
for
having
coming
us.
in person.
Great to be here
It's
in
great
person.
to be here. Sorry about my voice. I hope you've enjoyed this Techstrong Gang. We will be doing this again tomorrow and again on Thursday, so stay tuned for that. But until then, this is a slightly hoarse Alan Kimmel at RSA Conference. Stay with us, everyone. everyone. We're live here at RSA. This is Alan Schimmel. It's my first interview for RSA 2025. I've been busy over, I don't know if you could see it out the back, but Moscone South is just over there. We're in Moscone West, and I've been over in South all day. I haven't had a chance to be here. Lisa Martin's done a great job. I hope you're following along. What a best way to kick off my RSA coverage, though, than with this guy right here. If you don't know him, shame on you. But no, if you don't know him, he's the CEO of Futurum Group. It's my good friend, Daniel Newman. Daniel, welcome to our RSA coverage, man. You're my first interview.
Yeah, and welcome yourself. I mean, we're at the desk together.
Yeah?
Our first one since we got happily married.
That's right. And that was in Boca, was the last time we did that.
That was in Boca.
Yeah.
And our first RSA together, though, as
yes, this
one
is the
big
first
happy
time
family.
You've been here. So, and this is a good RSA. They're expecting somewhere between 40 and 45,000 people. You know, we do this event every year over in conjunction with them. This is our 10th year doing it. And we had, well, at 2 o'clock, we had about 850 people there. But we'll probably finish with 1,000. It was an amazing day of AI, cyber, app dev.
Yeah, it's been a good one so far. I came in on Sunday. I know the event technically is not even really fully started, the expo floor, but been doing some stuff around the perimeter. I had a great sit down with Palo Alto Network CEO Nikesh Arora. They bought a company since last night. An
AI company.
Announced and launched a new platform. So talk a little bit about that. Spent some time with Cisco's Chief Product Officer, Jeetu Patel.
I love
today.
Jeetu.
Had him G2's great.
Yeah.
Great sit down. I went over and visited the Veeam house. I was just sitting with Google Cloud for a while.
Really?
Of course, Google is making big moves. We'll see
Billions and billions.
30-something billion doing, and they got to get the Wiz deal done. You know, the environment's still a little questionable.
So I heard the Wiz deal is not getting done now till 2026.
I haven't heard anything official, and even if I had, I wouldn't say it here.
Okay.
But let's say from the onset of that announcement, there's a lot of regulatory uncertainty still. And Google, of course, is in the middle of a lot more regulatory scrutiny, Chrome, advertising business. They're just going through a lot right now. And so while personally, I don't actually believe this transaction is particularly problematic, I think when you're a company that's kind of facing this many investigations, both here domestically and around the world, trying to get something through, you know how hard it is to get these deals done. You need a lot of regulatory bodies to approve them.
There's also a PR aspect to it. And like you said, while this particular deal I don't think represents any sort of monopolistic behavior or anything, because of the atmosphere that Google finds themselves in, it's going to get so much more scrutiny than it deserves, quite frankly. You know, I'm not a handicapper, but the odds of this thing getting done are just not as good as you would think that it should be.
Yeah, so let me tell you something that is very interesting in those conversations that I had, though, so far. This industry has long been very fragmented. There's so many different types and pieces of security.
Yeah.
You come here, and it's not a few dozen power players. It is hundreds, thousands of companies. There's new companies, tons of venture money going into this space. You know, we're securing this application, this device, this edge, this data. But there is this really big sort of movement by these larger companies to try to do a platformization.
Yeah.
I heard it from Nikesh. I heard it from G2. This kind of, the industry needs centralization, and that AI is a bit of a forcing function.
Maybe, but so here, as someone who's been in security 30 years, the move to a platform, it's little fish get eaten by the medium fish, big fish eat the medium fish. One of the issues in security is innovation at the Cisco level or even the Palo Alto level kind of stopped. They count on acquisition for innovation. And what you used to hear was products become features, right? So you would have a small company that made a product, and then that became a feature in a larger product set. Well, the other shoe of dropping on that is products move into platforms.
Yep.
And then the nice thing about platform is you don't have to own every product that fits into that platform. You could partner and have an ecosystem, if you will. I think that's been the holy grail that companies like Palo, Cisco, and before them, McAfee, Symantec, they all chase that holy grail. Very few companies achieve that platform status, which is weird because you would think, what's the big deal about being a platform, right? But why is it so hard? But very few companies get there, Daniel.
Well, it's a massive deal. And what's a little different in terms of a forcing function, one, AI, right? So AI is creating so much velocity, so much pace that companies have to be able to address that, and stitching together dozens or hundreds of different security solutions is a challenge, especially given the amount of budget that is security, which is generally single-digit percentage of an overall IT budget.
At best.
While concurrently tending to be not the strongest part of expertise within any IT team. And so the idea, again, it's a good idea, not necessarily saying it will work, but that you could sort of have that one universal platform. By the way, we started there a little bit with cloud, right? It was, you're going to use one cloud.
Right.
And that one cloud will solve all your compute, storage, networking needs. And it's like, well, you need one cloud, but you also need a bunch of your own infrastructure still for this reason. And then it was how many years later that all those big clouds said, well, now you need more than one cloud. And by the way, there's a telco cloud and there's an edge. But I think the idea that getting underneath all of the security needs and having sort of a more prominent partner becomes relevant, but it also materially changes the makeup of the industry if that was to really take place.
Yes, it would. You know, the single biggest question I hear from my friends in security, especially those who can't make it out to San Francisco here at RSA, where's the innovation? Where is the innovation in security? We're doing the same things we were doing. Where's the innovation? And unfortunately, the innovation is generally not in Palo Alto or Cisco. Now, I don't mean to pick on them. They're two great security companies. The innovation, I always say, if you go down to the expo floor here at 5:30, it's kind of like the Star Wars galaxy. In the center of the galaxy, there's a big black hole that's sucking in light.
Yeah.
That's where these big companies have 40 by 40 booths and 80 by 80 booths. It's when you get to the outer rim, you see innovation. Those 10 by 10 booths where security people are innovating, coming up with the next generation, especially with AI, agentic AI stuff. And I see it in two ways with AI. One is AI is a sword, one is AI as a shield, or using a shield for AI. I don't think, I think the whole system is geared, and I'm not saying it's cracked, but the whole system is geared to keep that innovation engine humming.
100%. These big companies will make a number of purchases of these smaller companies. That was the Protect.ai acquisition.
Absolutely.
It's just that there are thousands of smaller startups either being seeded in Series A's and B's that may not see that exit. But we do need, in any industry, and that's the same thing in AI, there's lots of companies trying to innovate there, but we are seeing a very exciting convergence. Yeah. Security doesn't sit on the island anymore. It used to be like IT, security. And now these two things are very much interdependent.
Yep.
And that security platforms plus data plus infrastructure aren't sitting that far away from the type of compute applications and resources and agents.
Absolutely. Let me bring up something else. I'd like to get your thoughts. Hey, if you need a nap,
No, I'm good.
tissues, okay.
But we're all a little sick.
Yeah, well, it's going around here,
Thank
but
gosh, from where you sit watching us right now,
they
we're
can't
not
catch it
contagious.
from here. So, I don't know if you had a chance to go over to the what they call the Innovation Sandbox here.
No, not yet.
So, 20th year at RSA, they pick 10 companies every year to compete in the Innovation Sandbox. A who's who of winners over 20 years. Lots of IPOs, lots of big exits. This year they're doing something a little different. Every one of the 10 finalists is getting $5 million in venture money from CrossPoint Partners, which is the company that now owns RSA Conference.
Oh, wow.
Interesting. What's your opinion about, so RSA Conference as a conference, should they be investing in companies? Are we going to mess up? Are we going to kill the gravy train, this whole system of innovation? Like, you know, there's a lot of people here are saying RSA is a conference, not an investor. They're changing their business model. It's now RSAC Conference, C for community.
Well, I think that's very limiting. It's a very small mindset. Look, the RSA conference community, whether it is or isn't community, right? We're debating that, is a ecosystem, and it's a bringing together of many people and ideas. Transparency here is that RSA happens to be owned by a company that is invested in other businesses. They're using an event that they've built that brings the best together into one place to try to seed. I mean, they could do it more stealthily and have their...
I would rather them not.
Yeah, I'm saying, so now it's with a level of transparency. It's out in the open. I mean, these companies that are entering it are choosing. They understand that the consequence of being good could be taking an investment.
Yep.
They probably are trying to raise money. They're probably talking to other venture companies to try to raise money. So it's kind of like CNBC hosting Shark Tank. It's like, look, you've got an audience, you've got access to these interesting people, you're bringing them together, and it's good business. Good money, capital allocators putting good money towards good products and services is a key element of a strong capitalist society. And so, I mean, you know me. I mean,
you're a capitalist.
We liked what you did so much that I had to have it.
Yeah, I get it.
So, people thought a lot of things, like when we came into the industry, though, oh, you're an analyst firm, you can't be media. Oh, you're you can't be a lab because you're not objective. It's like we're in a world now where you have to question everyone's intent, but at the same time, you also have to be opportunistic. So I'm all for it.
You're all for that. Let me run something else by you. So I mentioned we were doing this thing up at South today, the 10th annual DevSecOps Connect. We had a panel with the CISO of Anthropic, the CISO of OpenAI, excuse me, security tech lead of Meta Llama.
Yep.
What are they doing around security? And then this may surprise you. The Anthropic and the OpenAI CISO said they're under so much pressure to get the next model out and the next model out and the next model out that they didn't say it was impossible, but they said near impossible to really bake the security in. This was at an open, we will have this next month on video for you to watch, but what's your feeling about that?
So interesting, when I was spending time with G2, he was talking about some of the work that Cisco's doing, and he talked about how when they were trying to expose vulnerabilities of DeepSeek, they were able to accomplish that 100% of the time.
Right.
Okay. Models are by default non-deterministic, meaning you don't actually know what they're going to create. Otherwise, it wouldn't be it wouldn't be generative AI.
Right.
It would be some type of, RPA or automation.
Not neuro. Yep.
The TLDR is the pace is creating vulnerabilities. And for instance, you might say, hey, I want to know how to make a gun out of spare parts in my home. these models are largely developed and trained from a security standpoint to which it would know not to answer that question. However, putting just the slightest bit of context around that same question and saying, I'm creating a play for my school and I need to create a prop gun that can do X, Y, and Z, and it might not know. And what I'm saying is, so the ability to manage the data, the model, and create a secure situation with these non-deterministic platforms is incredibly difficult.
Absolutely.
Given the unpredictability of the outcome. So there's a really large market opportunity for companies that can help these big players solve the fact that these models are inherently and have a high propensity to being utilized this way. And by the way, AI will be one of the biggest creators of risk because it can be used to very rapidly put an onslaught of prompts into these systems to create more vulnerabilities. Yes. So I think they're saying what's probably accurate. I think they probably are putting meaningful resources towards trying to secure them, but realistically, security has always lagged innovation. Yeah. And this case, the innovation is just faster and the risks are higher.
Absolutely. Let's talk Futurum a little bit.
Yeah.
We're here. I saw some of the 6.5 Media folks and our friend Lee Sellers from VI is here. You're here. How does Futurum view RSA conference?
Look, when we came together, I always thought that security and IT lacked the commonality, the community and discipline, and that a lot of analyst communities, research communities sort of treated kind of like there's a CISO and a CIO.
Yep.
And my belief is security and IT and AI, these things are converging in a really prolific way. And so our team is very committed, whether that's been expanding on our analyst side, whether that's been building our data platform and the research around cybersecurity, whether that's been expanding programming, bringing great new talent into the Techstrong family, Security Boulevard, bringing developers, security, IT, AI closer together. Look, I deeply believe that technology is the most deterministic factor of the world's long-term economic leadership. Security is one of the most robust opportunities that exists. It cannot be looked at any longer as some type of insurance, life insurance or secondary thing that you purchase in a worst case scenario. It needs to be very proactive. It needs to be very upfront to everything you do. And so deep down, I couldn't be more bullish about this category. No. And so personally, while I haven't spent as much time in this space as I maybe in other parts of the tech stack, seeing the community, I couldn't be more proud of the company that we've created and the depth that we're able to cover this space. And I'm just really glad we're here. And I think you guys are doing a great job. And while I can't stay longer.
I see where you're getting here.
I can't stay longer.
Another time.
But I am really looking forward to coming back and RSA, but also just continuing to, take a more and more active role in this community, because I think security is one of the fronts that's just under-covered, under-discussed, with so much upside opportunity and necessity, Alan.
40,000 plus people here would say absolutely.
100%.
Absolutely. Daniel Newman. Hey, dude, it's a pleasure having you here.
Thanks for having me.
I love working with this guy. Daniel Newman, CEO of Futurum, futurumgroup.com. We didn't talk about the intelligence portal. I'm going to talk about it this week. Check it out. But we're live at, excuse me, my voice is going. We're live at RSA. We'll be back. Actually, this is it for day one, right? Well, day 0. We'll be back tomorrow for day 1. Until then, enjoy. Bye-bye.
Hello and welcome to the latest edition of the Techstrong.ai video series. We're going to be talking today about content moderation and how AI can help us with that. Joining us today is Eric Swain, who's CEO for Respondology, and they just picked up an additional $5 million in funding for a platform that helps us navigate all these issues. Eric, welcome to the show.
Yep, thank you, Mike. Nice to meet you. Appreciate you having me.
Sadly, our websites are inundated with comments and social media networks not much better, that are, shall we say, unhelpful. There's all these trolls out there that kind of just ruin the experience for everybody else. And I think people stop paying attention to a lot of these things, and it's a shame. Is there some way that we can regain control of the conversation?
Unhelpful is probably a nice way to put it. And the answer is yes, there is a way we can do it. And there's about 450 brands around the world on our platform doing it right now and have been doing it for the last several years. So modern technology does allow a brand today to, let's say, enforce a code of conduct in their social stream, the same code of conduct they probably want to enforce in their brick and mortar store or maybe their stadium. So yes, Mike, it can be done. It is being done, and it's expanding throughout the marketplace.
And how does that work? What does it take to get that accomplished? Because I think a lot of folks, A, may not even know that they can do it, but B, is the cure going to be worse than the disease in their mind? Because sometimes when they look at these AI things, the cost is off the charts. But is there some way to do this cost effectively?
Yeah, I mean, technology in this case, our platform is actually making it a cheaper event than what most of our brands or clients were doing prior. So a lot of our clients and brands would have junior staff going into their social media apps, Instagram, Facebook, what it is, and manually trying to remove really damaging comments. And we're not talking about negativity or product feedback. We're talking about vitriol, toxicity, porn bots, etc. And that costs money to have people doing it. They can't do it 24/7. They can't do it the scale technology can. And so we come in with our platform, which is AI powered, and we can remove all the junk, the abuse, the bots, the scams in the social media stream. And we can do it in less than a second. We can do it discreetly, and we can usually do it for about a fourth of the cost that a brand was paying humans to do it prior. So this is a classic case of tech empowering a marketing team to do more with less.
Mhm. And how does the platform work? I mean, what exactly went into this, and how come you're able to solve this issue where others might not have even attempted?
Well, the platform has three layers, if you will. So I'll give you the how in 60 seconds, then we'll take on your second question. The first layer is 30,000 keywords, phrases, and emojis, fully customizable, ready to go, plug and play. So you launch in 10 minutes, you immediately start removing the abuse or whatever it is you want. If a comment gets through those 30,000 keywords and phrases, first layer, it goes into our Gen AI layer, which is really the meat of the platform. That's where the technology is really sophisticated. So the Gen AI, as one can imagine, it doesn't need a keyword or a phrase to trigger on it. It is comprehending the context of a particular comment. It's actually savvy enough that it can read the image, what is in the image of the post or the ad that the brand made on social media, the text above it. So it's reading the whole context of the page to decide, is this comment abusive? Is it damaging? Is it innocuous? Is it spam or bots? And then it decides to remove it or not in real time, as in less than a second. If anything gets to those two technology layers, we have a third layer of human moderators. But as the software gets better and better, the human moderators are really just data labelers feeding data back into the AI so it gets smarter every comment, every day, every moment. The key is this: not only does it happen in less than a second, it's discreet, meaning, Mike, the troll still sees their comment that made it. They have no idea they've been moderated. The rest of the world never sees it. And so it's very discreet. It won't inflame the situation. A brand is enforcing a code of conduct in their social stream without anybody knowing it.
So that eliminates this whole argument that people have around freedom of speech and whatnot on online platforms, which doesn't equally apply to everybody, right? If I'm a company and it's my website and it's my branding, I'm not really obligated necessarily to give everybody equal voice. So I should have more control. Is that different than what, say, a Facebook might encounter, or is it roughly the same?
No, that's a great topic. In no way is it stepping on freedom of speech for a couple reasons. First off, if I'm a brand, a massive fashion retailing brand, one of our clients, in my store, my brick and mortar store, I have a code of conduct. You have to behave a certain way to come into my shopping experience in my brick and mortar store. This is all we are enforcing for our 400 plus brands is they want the same code of conduct in their digital channels. I am in that brand space on social media, so I have to behave a certain way. So there's nothing different here than, I can't go in and shout profanities and attack people and shout scam if I walk into an Apple store today, so to speak. So it's the same as that. Plus, I can still go onto social media and say whatever I want. I just have to do it on my own social channel, not in somebody else's space. So freedom of speech still wide open. You can go say what you want on social media. And that's the big difference here, and I think that's why this is becoming a standard way to operate in social marketing very quickly.
There's also security implications here, if I understand it correctly, because a lot of the bots are inserting links into the comments that then are designed to try to take people to some sort of site somewhere where they'll get infected with malware or whatever it may be. So, do the cybersecurity people need to be part of this conversation?
Yeah, they're usually pretty happy about it. You're right, Mike. So there's several value props. Why, if I'm a brand, should I moderate comments in social media? Security's one. There are nefarious links that are dropped into social comment streams that if you click on it, well, you've opened up a security breach. There is the time and energy we already talked about, your team trying to manually remove those things. Protecting your brand 24/7, 365. Most companies, most of our clients invest millions into their brand perception out there and building their brand and having a brand voice. And if several billion people can attack you and say whatever you want, and slander your brand, well, you're losing your brand leakage. That money's going up the top and it's leaking out the bottom. So protecting your brand's a big one. Here's a really interesting one: ROI. So we ran a study across 96 of our 450 brands last year that encompassed about 1.3 billion in paid social spend. And on average, across those 96 brands and north of $1 billion in spend, the return on ad spend for our clients went up 7.3%. So they made 7.3% more than they had prior investing in social. Their cost per click went down 33% on all their ads they're running across Facebook and Instagram and TikTok. And they got a 13x return on investment they spent on the moderation in terms of the revenue they made off it. So beyond protecting a brand's equity, saving it time, security savings, and plugging those leaks, we're helping brands make more money in their social media operation. And these are why, it's spreading like wildfire, that this is something you have to have in your social media tech stack.
Also seems to me that the average person kind of wants some level of moderation. Otherwise, the site you visit, if it looks like it's a cesspool, then they get turned off and they go somewhere else. So, is this becoming fundamentally a requirement for any kind of marketing effort?
Yeah, it is. It's funny you say that. We see all the time when we turn a brand on, the bots, the spam, the attacks on their brand, their executives, their products go away. And you start to see people comment like, wow, this is like such a more friendly place, or this is a more welcoming social stream, or this is the best comment stream I've been to today. What a relief, So you see these comments and yeah, people do like it. I mean, if you just take yourself, if you walk into a shopping experience, a brick and mortar store, back to that analogy, you kind of want a clean, sane shopping environment. So does the retailer. Same idea, right? You don't really want to go shopping in social media and looking at products and it's a cesspool. So it's the same idea. Everybody likes a clean, well-run store. It's the same thing happening here for the most part.
So what's next for you guys? Where do you go from here?
Well, I went around last year and I talked to our, about 40 CMOs and SVPs and said, hey, you're a client of ours. What do you like about our brand, our product? What do you not like? What are you doing in social media? Where's your tech stack going there? And we heard two more things come back. We heard, yes, we love the moderation. It's protecting our brand. Our sales are improving. All right, great. Check. We've done that. And we're leading that space. Then they would say, hey, Eric, you and our team have all our comment data in your platform by the tens of millions for some of our really big clients. What can we learn from that? Like, people are talking about our product out there. They're talking about our marketing, their buyer intent raising their hand. We want to learn from that. So we took that feedback and we rolled out at the very end of last year a product called Discover, our second product. Our first is Moderate, everything we've talked about. The second is Discover. And what it does is, in 3 clicks and 30 seconds, any marketer can know everything being said about their brand in their comment stream, which is golden information, real-time feedback about what your strongest buyers and consumers are saying about your product, what they want, the content they want, etc. We also expanded that so you can run the same report on your competitors or your influencers or your partners. So now you can not only know everything happening around your brand, you know what's happening around your category and what your competitors are posting and how people are reacting to it. What are my influencers saying and how are they being reacted to? So you suddenly get this 360 vision AI powered that in 30 seconds, you get a view at any point in time. So that's Discover. That's our second product. So here what we have is brands that want to protect themselves in the wilds of social. They want to learn from the common streams, realizing there's a lot of great data in there. The third, which we're rolling out later this year by market demand, is called Respond. And brands want to systematically engage the audiences in social streams, but in a personalized way. Back to the manual labor. A lot of our clients are paying people to heart and like emoji audiences out there, answer simple questions. Where do I get those red running shoes? That's expensive. That doesn't scale. AI is going to take over that the second half of this year. So then if you zoom all the way out, Mike, I'm a brand now where I used to just put ads or posts in social media and it was the Wild West. Well, no longer. Now I'm protecting my brand. There's a code of conduct around it. I'm learning from the audiences in real time and I'm engaging with them in a systematic, scalable way. I am now getting a lot more value out of my social media operation than I did 2024 or beyond. That's really what's happening here. Marketers are looking at this communication channel and going, this is massive. This is my connective tissue to my audience, my consumers, my prospects. I've got to get this under control. I have to optimize that. And that's really what we are doing, leveraging AI tech.
And the other part of this equation too is just plain old affinity. If I go to a website, I just don't want to talk to the brand all the time. I want to talk to other people that have a passion for something that I'm engaged with as well. But I don't want that to turn into some sort of, attack about a topic that has nothing to do with that particular website. I think people want to have a conversation within a reasonable set of bounds. And so is that part of the reason to do all this?
Yeah, it's a great point, Mike, because a lot of times our clients say, you've enabled us to have a two-way conversation with our prospects, our consumers in social. I can now talk to them without there being a cesspool. But you make a great point. What's happening, we see it, is now people are talking inside a social stream, not with the brand, but amongst each other. And if you go to a brand that, let's say, is a little bit polarizing and they're not moderating, you're going to see a lot of attacks. You're going to see a lot of spam bots, porn bots, Bitcoin, DM me. Pretty hard to wade through all that and find somebody and say, hey, what did you really think about that new GoPro Hero 8 battery or whatever it might be? So yeah, it's opening up the conversation inside the social stream as well. It's making social a social place, which is where we're trying to take it.
So I think a lot of folks, when they first think about this, they get overwhelmed because if you wade into those conversations, you're kind of like, oh my, this is all over the place. What's your best advice about how to get started? Is there something somewhere that you've seen people do that kind of gets them down the path sooner? Because it can be a little intimidating.
Yeah, I would say it's pretty easy. Take a look at some technology. Somebody will show you. We will show you if you want to give us a call and we'll say, look, what problem are you having? Let us show you our tech. Here's how we could solve those problems. You'll pretty quickly get an idea of like, is this for me? Do I see value in this? Or call a competitor of ours, right? Let's remove Respondology and just take the issue at large. There's other technologies out there that can solve this problem for you. But I would say just, reach out. A quick chat GPT, a quick Google search, comment moderation. You're going to find 4 or 5 companies will come up. Call one of them, take a look, see the tech, ask how it works. From there, you'll be pretty educated on whether you want to move forward with this. Should you see that and go, yeah, you know what, I want to do that. I think that's going to be better for my business. 2 things to note. One is you can test it for a month. You don't have to commit. Try it for a month. Find out, see what value you see for yourself. 2, launching literally takes 30 minutes. It's very easy software. We are already approved partners of Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. We're already plugged into their APIs. In 30 minutes in a quick call, our account team can just turn you on and have you test drive it. So it's pretty easy to launch. It's pretty easy to vet. You just got to make the call and figure it out. And like you said a minute ago, this is new for most people. This is new technology. This is a new practice in social operations. So you just got to kind of dive in and kick the tires.
All right, folks, you heard it here. Hey, the way the Wild West was tamed was because people enforced a code of conduct inside of a town. This is no different. Hey, Eric, thanks for being on.
Technology, Mike. I'll use that one. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you all for watching the latest episode of the Techstrong.ai series. We invite you to check this one out and others on our website. Till then, we'll see you next time.
Welcome back to Techstrong TV. Lisa Martin here, coming to you live from Moscone West at RSAC 2025 in San Francisco. This is Techstrong's 10th year of covering RSAC. We've been having some amazing conversations today with cybersecurity experts, which you know because you've been watching since we started. I've got two great guests here next, here to talk about what they're doing in the federal space. Bridget Gleason joins us, the CRO at Spacelift, and Irina Denisenko, the CEO at Knox Systems. Ladies, it's great to have you on the program. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you to be here.
Love talking partnership stories. So let's do it about for each one.
Okay.
Spacelift. Give the audience an overview. We're talking about infrastructure as code, but what's your secret sauce?
Policy-driven, governance, security, enabling teams to go fast.
Yeah.
It's all about velocity, but you can't sacrifice on security and governance. So that's really the secret sauce.
And you're enabling developers to go faster. You're enabling platform teams to have more control.
Right, the whole ecosystem to go faster, because the name of the game is getting your software out there,
Yes.
and you can't do that if you're not able to deliver it on reliable, secure infrastructure.
Absolutely.
So, and that's all that we're talking about today.
Yeah.
is around security, and it's becoming more and more challenging and more important.
Absolutely.
So we're
It's
seeing,
kind of a double-edged sword because
Right.
it's essential, yet there's so much more software being developed every day.
Right.
And that threat landscape just gets more and more amorphous and sticky and
right. There's no surprise that we've seen a huge uptick in demand at
Yeah.
Spacelift.
Irina, give us a background on Knox Systems. Where you based? What do you do? How do you partner with Spacelift?
Thank you. Well, Knox is a very simple concept. We are FedRAMP as a service.
Okay.
We host our customer applications in our federally compliant cloud, and we get them FedRAMPed in 90 days for 90% off of what it takes to do it alone.
Oh my gosh,
And
that's
so
huge.
we are so excited to partner with Spacelift to be able to bring them into FedRAMP, but even more importantly, to be able to use them for us. We manage over 20 applications, including Adobe's Federal Cloud, and we need tooling to do that in a compliant way.
Yeah.
And that's exactly why we're so excited to be using Spacelift. to
And
do
how
so.
how long has the partnership been going on?
It's being announced tomorrow.
Oh, congratulations.
So you're like, this is
we're
hot.
breaking news?
You're
We're
breaking
Ladies,
news
here.
thank you. I'm
Breaking news.
excited.
Hot off the press. And you know, when our CEO came to me and was telling me about Knox, and like you said, 90% discount, 90 days, I thought there's no way.
Yeah.
And for us, we have this growing demand. Our growth is being fueled right now by large enterprise, government organizations, lots of regulatory industries. And so having this FedRAMP piece is so significant for us. And also being able to deliver that to Knox is really exciting.
Is this opening the door for Spacelift in the federal space?
Yes, to some don't require FedRAMP,
Okay.
and we're able to satisfy that, but many do require FedRAMP. The other that Irene and I were talking about as we were walking over here is large enterprise. Also, when you have that FedRAMP certification, they know that you've got a very strict security checklist that you've already complied with.
Yeah.
And so I think that's going to accelerate also
Sure.
time to market for some other
Right.
companies that we're
Right.
working with.
Well,
so
you're giving them the
we
confidence.
are thrilled.
Yeah. You're giving them the confidence, the customer base,
100%.
of what you're able to deliver. Why would some federal agencies not be required be FedRAMP certified?
You
Is that?
probably know that as
Yeah, so
I assumed it was a blanket requirement across.
So the situations are really if you're delivering on-prem, and Spacelift is able to deliver
To do
both a
both.
SaaS
Okay.
and an on-prem. So if
Okay.
you do on-prem, that's fantastic, and you're able to deliver to the government because
Yep.
effectively you're air-gapped. But for the many, many, many SaaS solutions out there, and to be able to operate at the speed of SaaS and at the scale of SaaS, that is where FedRAMP comes in, and that's really where we're enabling Spacelift to really accelerate.
Okay, got it. Talk a little bit about what federal agencies will be able to achieve with this partnership. What's in it for them?
Absolutely. So I'll start off right off the bat. We have 15 federal agencies that serve as our authorization to operate providers. That means they are our sponsors. And they are thrilled about this because what it means to them is they know that the applications that sit in our boundary, the applications that they consume, are that much more secure, that much more observed and compliant with all of not just the FedRAMP regulations, which are very important and really the name of the game, but also there's many additional regulations around now AI coming out, around cryptography coming out, because of course software is moving so quickly. And so as we harden our stack with tools like Spacelift, it means to them that they feel a lot more confident consuming from our cloud.
And I do a lot of marketing. I've been in marketing for a long time, and confidence is critical. It's not a marketing term. That is to be able to give a developer, a platform team, an agency, the trust and the confidence that their applications are secure is not table stakes. It's table stakes.
No, it absolutely has to be. And Irene and I were talking earlier today about how this administration is looking to modernize a lot of the infrastructure.
Yes, it is.
That's going to require for them to do it a lot more software companies that are certified to service the government. And it's part of the reason I'm sure you're seeing a big demand. We're seeing a big demand because for us to fulfill that, we've got to satisfy these requirements. So as you said, it's trust.
Yeah.
But it's also there has to be the security, very real security. And it is frightening to think about with AI and some other tools out there that the threats are getting bigger. And so being able to have a platform like Spacelift that is very strong around security, compliance, governance, et cetera, is critical. One of the things we heard today, we were at the same talk this morning, was companies that want to allow their security folks who are working on compliance issues, everything you need to do to satisfy compliance, they would like them to actually be working on security issues. So a platform like Spacelift that can take away some of those compliance chores and busy work will enable some of the security people. What did they say today? How many? 500,000?
Open positions.
Open positions in
cybersecurity.
security.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So we've got to make sure that the people that that can be doing security are working on it. And Spacelift can help take away some of the other compliance and auditing and some of those other requirements that we can help fulfill through automation.
Right.
And so you have the security folks focused on
And
what
that's
they need
what
to
they
focus
want
on.
to do. Developers want to develop. Security professionals want to secure. By being able to offload and automate some of those, I don't want to say menial tasks, but tasks that take time and resources is huge.
I don't know if you know that we released an AI agent about 2 weeks ago, Saturn Head AI. And I mean, you're talking about the mundane, repetitive tasks for DevOps engineers. That's finding out what happened when a deployment fails.
Yeah.
And it requires looking through very complex, voluminous logs. It's mundane, it's repetitive, and it often requires a more senior engineer to be parsing through those logs. So our agent can go analyze the logs in plain English, give you a description of what happened.
Probably like that.
Like that. And then also, these are the things required to remedy it. So again, making sure that we've got the more senior people deployed on the highest tasks.
Yes. So from a sales perspective, are you selling into developers? Are you selling into security teams? Is it both?
Yes.
All the above.
Yes.
Okay.
We get interest from the developers. We get interest from security. We get interest from CIOs. We get interest from platform teams.
Okay.
It kind of comes across the board depending on what their lens is to look at it.
Okay. What excites you? I mean, there's so much. You talked about AI, and we can't go to a conference without talking about AI, right?
We can't.
Even a fashion conference is going to be talking about AI and fashion, I'm sure. But it's been around for so long, yet the Chat GPT catalyst a couple years ago just brought it front and center, and everybody is diving in head first. But it also opens up vulnerabilities and more opportunities for the bad actors. What excites you about some of the positives that you're seeing in the security space where AI is concerned versus all of the fear that's out there?
Yeah. Well, I can tell you from just operating our federal boundary, it is a game changer to have AI reasoning agents that we can custom train on our data, run with open source models that we are able to fully understand, and actually take those agents and scan our boundary for issues with the boundary not being compliant with FedRAMP. So rather than having to do something manually only once a year or once a month or as often as you can get to it, we're able to truly do continuous monitoring, and that is only enabled by AI reasoning agents, which is why we're so excited because, yes, the bad guys are going to move fast, but we're able to move faster.
That's so important because it's like the AI arms race.
Yeah.
We see it country to country, all the competition going on, and we see every organization really embracing AI. It's rare if I talk to a CMO who's not embracing it, at least generative AI. And now it's agentic AI as well, and ephemeral AI. Talk a little bit about the go-to-market strategy, sales, CEO. What is that going to look like from both of your lenses?
With regards to the partnership?
Yes.
Again, we were talking about this on the way over. I asked Irina, so when will we be FedRAMP authorized exactly? And she said
June 1.
June 1. That's
June
around
1.
the corner.
Hit go.
So again, I've got a pipeline of opportunities right now of, again, large enterprise regulated industries, government organizations that have already reached out to us and are looking at spacelift. So I think we'll continue business as usual. We just now, there's a gap that we hadn't filled, and we thought it was going to be, honestly, Lisa, more than a year and very expensive for us to do it. So this is like Christmas for me to have this. I mean, it's so thrilling. And I think for our customers as well, because they're trying to do the same thing. They're trying to create resilient, scalable, secure infrastructure for their environment. So to be able to satisfy that just feels really great. I think it's definitely a win-win.
It sounds like there's already a lot of momentum from a demand perspective. Are you seeing the same thing on the Knox side?
Absolutely. So part of this partnership is actually we at Knox are installing one spacelift worker per application inside of our boundary. So that's already almost 20 workers installed. And as additional customers come on to Knox, they're using spacelift. But the other thing I'll tell you is that even, for example, one of our customers, as I mentioned, is Adobe. They're now starting to look at spacelift as something they might want to be using even beyond just their federal application, but in their development team beyond. So it's a really, because it's such a broadly applicable tool, not just for federal security, but much more beyond that, it's a great place to really spread the word.
Sounds like you guys are going to be awfully busy. That's a good thing, right?
Absolutely. I just want to shout it from the mountaintops. I'm so
Smart,
enthusiastic about.
I love it.
I'm so enthusiastic about the partnership. Again, it fills a great gap.
Yeah.
I think we're going to be great partners. It's so mutually beneficial and reinforcing of one another. So we're really excited about it.
And you're going to be able, we talk about cyber resilience all day long. It's a journey. It's not a destination, but it's also one, I always wonder, how can organizations truly become resilient? How is this a facilitator of that? Because resilience is the goal for so many organizations across industries.
Well, this is one step towards that.
Absolutely. One thing to really I think the position we take at Knox is to be aggressively conservative, right? And you can only be aggressively conservative in your security practices, in your resource configurations, is if you're able to, one, automate, but B, observe exactly what you're doing. That's why we use infrastructure as code, and we always have. That's why we wanted to use Spacelift right out of the gate, and we said, please, would you get FedRAMP, please, so that we can use you. But that is the only way to stay resilient. If you're able to automate and be kind of everywhere all at once all the time, that's the only way.
Right. What do you hope for? Last question for both of you. What do you hope? Here we are almost in May, June 1, hit the ground running. What is kind of your dream for the rest of 2025 as partners?
Well, I can tell you we are going to be bringing on a number of applications into the Knox boundary. Every single one of them is going to be running Spacelift workers to orchestrate their environment. And what I'm so excited about is to really be able to see this, mass machine humming.
Yeah.
And there's no doubt that there are going to be, it wasn't that long ago that Log4j took our entire industry down for, months.
Right.
And there will be more. And what I'm very excited about is that we are constructing this boundary in a very hardened way, in a very thoughtful way, and Spacelift is a key part of that.
That's critical. Ladies, thank you so much for joining me on Techstrong TV. It's been great to have you.
Likewise.
Learning about the partnership. Congratulations. The news comes out tomorrow. We got to break some news. I always love it when I get the chance to do that. But it sounds like you're creating that resilience that organizations, not just the federal agencies, but in every industry.
That's right. That's right. This definitely goes beyond just federal agencies. So it's really thrilling.
Well, congratulations again. And we'll be watching your trajectory. And we thank you for sharing your insights on Techstrong TV.
Thank you.
For my guests, I'm Lisa Martin. You're watching Techstrong TV live from RSAC. This is day one of wall-to-wall coverage, 4 days here on Techstrong. Stay tuned. My next guest joins me in just a minute.
Hey guys, thanks for the throw. We're here with Santiago Torres, who is a maintainer of the open source InToto security framework, which just graduated from the CNCF. And I'm going to let Santiago explain exactly what that is because, well, there's a lot of security frameworks these days, but then again, you can never have too much security, I guess. So Santiago, welcome to the show.
My pleasure. Yeah, happy to explain anything about InToto.
Yeah, so what exactly does this framework do and where does it fit in the spectrum of things? Because, well, CNCF's got a broad reach these days that goes well beyond Kubernetes.
Yeah, so as you said, there's never enough security, and we keep on finding ways in which things can go wrong. InToto is really a small, I wouldn't say small, but a very specific project when it comes to security. It's trying to target a subset of problems that usually have a very high impact on the real world. I'm talking about software supply chain attacks. These attacks are usually somebody poisons the well or the water supply of your open source project or your closed source project for that matter. Now, the way that I usually explain it to people is imagine that somebody breaks into, I don't know, the distribution of your containers, breaks into Docker Hub and introduces malware. And then you download those containers, you use them in your infrastructure, and they take over your cloud. Now, the real reason why this happens is that you got legitimate software, quote unquote, from a legitimate source, and you did what you do every day. A lot of the times you don't even realize that something has changed. And when you put them in your infrastructure is when you're actually getting hacked. The InToto project is trying to provide visibility and insurance that nobody who has been working on producing those containers for you, i.e., working on your software supply chain, is able to poison your cloud. I don't know if this makes sense, or was I too...
I get the basic idea, but how do we go about doing that? Because so often we hear about things like container jailbreaks and a lot of software. There's ways to get from the software to the infrastructure. So how do we prevent that?
Yeah, so I think the word supply chain is very useful in understanding how InToto works. And I'm not talking about only software supply chains. I'm talking about like supply chains in general. When you get, say, a can of, I don't know, of juice, right? You know that there's things like a lot number, a tamper-proof seal around the bottle. There is probably an expiration date. If it's, say, even medicine or something like that, sometimes they have a hologram to know that this is not a counterfeit product. And all of those things, you use them, and we use them naturally when we're working with physical objects to say, well, do I trust this thing? Am I actually going to drink from this bottle of juice? InToto is that, but for containers. The idea is that as the containers or really any software is being produced and created and modified and updated and analyzed and scanned and all these things that we do before we actually put them in the cloud, we want to know exactly what happened to them and that nobody did anything outside of the ordinary, so that when we open the quote-unquote bottle of juice, which is our container, we actually know that everybody did what they were supposed to do, that nothing was missing, and that nobody put anything malicious in our software.
So it almost sounds like there's an audit trail for the way the artifact is built, and I can see what happened when and made sure that there wasn't anything unusual.
Exactly, and you got it exactly right. That's the end goal. With this audit trail, then you can make sure that everything is happening to the T. And you also said it also allows you to think a little bit more proactively as well, right? What are the things that I'm doing? Are they the best practices? Is everybody following them? Maybe it's not a fully security problem if something happens, but if something was skipped or missed or not done according to the expected sort of like practices, then you can go back and find exactly where did it happen and who didn't do it.
How does it know when that happened? Is there an agent or is there something recording something, or how does that all occur?
That is where it gets a little tricky. But going back to the metaphor, and I'll tell you the very explicit way that it works in a minute. But it's so much different from a real supply chain, right? Imagine somebody working at the Ford factory in the 1940s or something. Everybody does a little thing to create a product. They usually clock into the quote unquote factory, and then maybe they rubber stamp every single piece that they actually worked on, so that you know that that step was done. On the Intoro project, or really for software, we cannot clock into the virtual factory and do this, but instead what you can do is you can produce a little piece of information called a software attestation. This software attestation tells you who did what and to what. From those, as you said, you can build an audit trail. It's got a bunch of like cryptographic stuff in it. But really at the core of it is, what did I take in? Say I took some source code. What did I run on it? Say I run a compiler. And what did I produce? Say I created a binary. With this, we can build effectively an audit trail that lets us walk all the way to the beginning of even the design process or the requirements, if you want.
So is this kind of taking the whole concept of a software bill of materials deeper into the software supply chain so I can see what's happening? And maybe if I want to dive in deeper from my SBOM, I can?
Yes, actually, these two technologies work very well together. You may have heard the metaphor for a software bill of materials as like labeling, right? It tells you what materials are in this, or if there's, I don't know, peanuts on my granola bar or something like this. Uh, you can imagine all of these other steps being in total, allowing you to have both more confidence about what's on this software bill of materials, but also a way to produce the software bill of materials as well, right? If you know somebody's using peanuts, again, sorry for all of the metaphors, to produce the granola bar, and then the software bill of materials doesn't say that there's peanuts here, then you have a discrepancy and something maybe a little bit off.
So in some ways, it can verify the SBOM, because a lot of folks are kind of dubious about how does that SBOM actually know what's in there, because it's basically it's a list of ingredients, but anybody can come up with a list, right?
Yes, and that's another thing that I think Intoro really does bring to the table that helps SBOMs be more trustworthy. You can play like a liar type of game, right? If you have a software attestation that says, here's this, I did this thing, and then you don't see it in the software bill of materials, then, well, what gives, right?
Mm-hmm. So is this all going to get embedded into our DevSecOps workflows, or how will it manifest?
Well, the good news, and I think this is partly why we're celebrating graduation for Intoro, is that it really is already embedded in a lot of places that you use every day in terms of DevSecOps. The way that you can use Intoro is either you just flip a switch on, say, GitHub Actions. You can produce attestations today by using the GitHub Actions runner or GitLab or really pretty much any major CI platform. Or you can check if your tool supports it. Say vulnerability scanners already do it. There is tooling from the Intoro project that can wrap existing operations. Witness is probably the one that everybody would start with, that you can tell it, well, I'm already doing, I don't know, tagging releases on Git. Then you run Witness and it produces a software attestation saying who tagged this, how did they do it, and what is it that they actually did.
That kind of brings me to the issue of the day. We're all obsessed with software supply chain security these days, and for good reason. And I feel like we have plenty of tools, but has it really just become more of a cultural issue, and we got to change the way people think? Because every time I turn around, somebody seems to have a new tool for securing the things. So what are we going to do to solve this issue?
Yeah, so wearing my academic hat for a little bit, I think the software supply chain metaphor is useful because it helps us understand how things are made, right? And software supply chains in particular are relatively new, so a lot of things are in flux and a lot of things are moving around, and we're trying to figure out what is the best way to approach things. One fundamental design principle of Intoro is that it's not meant to change anything that you do. The only real thing that changes is you want to include Intoro into your flow to report what you're doing rather than changing what you're doing and make that secure. Does this make sense?
Mm-hmm. So let's say in the future that the people creating the software are not people at all, but they're AI agents. Can I extend the framework to keep track of what AI agents were up to and versus what humans were up to? And, are they essentially the same thing as far as the framework is concerned, or are they slightly different?
They're exactly the same thing as far as the framework is concerned. a very interesting sort of thought exercise that we did when we were designing in Toro early on was, can we attest to literally anything? Could we attest for, I don't know, brainwaves about our intent to commit the code? And it turns out that you can, right? Something that we're doing in my lab right now is, can code agents attest to what they're producing for you, right? If you have Codex and Codex is producing source code, then you would want to know which code is actually being produced by Codex, not because it's better or worse than human code, but rather if something happens, you know exactly where those lines came from, which model did them, what was the context, what what time was it? Was it in a grumpy mood? I don't know. Like agents are a little bit tricky to reason about, but you can use this information to better understand what is your security posture.
So, what is it, do you think, that the people who get this and do it right, what do they understand going in that you wish maybe more people would think about up front before they kind of started trying to secure their software supply chains? Because I got a feeling that, there's a series of steps, but I'm not sure everybody knows which one comes first.
That's a very good question. So I will say, in Toto is a project that started 10 years ago. It's turning 10 years this year. And as time has passed, we have found that a lot of the people that integrate it, they usually think that the problem is running the tool or setting up the runners or collecting the attestations. And all of that is actually secondary. Really, really the challenge is, what does a good supply chain look like, and what is my expectations? What is my policy? When people start integrating in Toto, a lot of the times they look into what they're doing and then they realize there's a lot of steps that people are doing that they don't talk about, or things that people do in order to make things work, but they don't report them. And those are never encoded into what are the practices that an organization is doing at that time. So a lot of the times they set up all of this sort of like collection endpoint for the software attestations, and then they start looking at what they collected and they go like, oh, gee, we didn't know we're doing all of these things. Now we need to review what does this mean for our software supply chain. I would say that as a general piece of advice is taking it slowly. I think that the supply chain, as cliche as it sounds, maybe as weak as the weakest link. So finding that one link and trying to ensure that that step in your supply chain or that dependency acquisition process is secured will take you farther than trying to boil the ocean and doing a full like in total deployment with hundreds and hundreds of attestations all over the place.
Do you think that we might someday, or maybe we already are for all I know, but can we take any of the data collected or created by InToto and analyze that in some way that might surface some insights into the way we build software that can help us out?
Yes, that is another project that I'm trying to work in my lab. One of the reasons why, as an academic, I'm very interested in this problem is I think it does include the data science side of things, right? We can learn about how the better sort of teams actually carry out their operations by just looking at this raw data, this audit trail. And I'm even imagining a world in which we can help other teams adopt better practices just by doing parity of attestations, right? What attestation is missing on this deployment that the pros are using? Or what is the secret sauce that all of the pros have that is like represented in their attestations that we can carry out to the rest of the teams?
All right, folks. Well, you heard it here. There's an old saying that says, you can't manage what you can't see. And when it comes to software supply chain, attestation is the thing you can't see. Santiago, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you.
All right. Back to you guys in the studio.